The latest development is that certainly Wales-England goes ahead. I have seen murmurs or suggestions that the players understand the appeal of 9-10 million from an England game in Cardiff, but that the game against France is by no means a guarantee. Do we know, have they sorted everything out today?
Like, it's only just come on before we were out. We came on air, and I think it looked from the soundings I saw from the journalists who were tweeting out, who were obviously getting fed stuff from the meetings, that they seem to have reached an agreement that the 60 cap rule is down to 25 now, which, like, you're going to see an exodus, of Welsh players. This, like, the agreement that they've reached seems to have will facilitate their star players going abroad in order to earn decent money, but also play for Wales, which is a model that is very, very different to the one we have, and we'll see whether it works for them. But certainly it will devalue what the regions are able to do in the years to come. Now, I haven't seen whether this will all come to light in the next couple of hours, whether that performance clause, the players were very much against being heavily incentivised when the regions were being diminished to the point where they can't compete against Leinster. Well, how are you going to incentivise us? We'll never get those incentives because the team won't be strong enough. But it does sound like that they've reached an agreement, and the game this week will go ahead. Like they couldn't, if they pulled the plug on this game, they pulled the plug on Welsh rugby. That's how valuable it is to the Welsh economy, to the Welsh Rugby Union. There'd be no money there if they pulled the plug in this game. I always thought there would be resolution, but I suppose they had to go to they couldn't bring a knife to a gunfight. They had to come to the table with something real to get the WRU to accede to their demands. But it just shows, in some ways, when you hold the mirror up to when you use it as a mirror to hold up to what we have here, the Irish system, and I would be critical of the RFU in some regards, and I would be, I certainly wouldn't be a mouthpiece for them, but like it's such a better run ship, and the system and the situation is so much better here than it is there. Our nearest neighbours, it does make them look very good when you kind of look at it through that prism.
Yeah, the 25 caps, and you can still play for your country regardless of your club rugby, Fiona. I mean, on the one hand, from the union's point of view, they won't scream it from the rooftops, but in the way that Tommy Bowe was the best value for money Irish player for many years at the Ospreys, that's going to save them a whole chunk of change. The bigger name players can go and earn a good living in England or in France. The net result, though, from a competitive point of view, is we're unlikely to see the regions contribute much in the URC or in Europe for the foreseeable.
Yeah, and that's the worry with them in the URC, isn't it? That the big players will head away and they'll be left with, they obviously haven't really looked after their academies, is kind of coming out either. They haven't put much money or time into those academies in the clubs. So if the big names start going and the players start going to England, France and other places and still are allowed play with Wales, you would be worried in the next couple of years how these guys are going to play. And I suppose the one thing about Welsh rugby a lot of the time is when you did watch them is their unity, and they knew each other. They only came for the 4 teams a lot of the time, maybe only for the 2 top teams in Wales. And when you watch them Six Nations time, they just seem to play off one another. They're going to lose that as well, because if these guys are moving to different countries, they won't have grown up playing with fellas or won't be able to understand how they're playing, and they'll get a shorter time together when it comes into camp time, heading into Six Nations and in turn heading into World Cups.
I dare say in your time as a player, you potentially had weeks where you were very frustrated with the IRFU, and there were issues to be sorted out and logistics to be sorted out and various frustrations. When it comes to match time, did you find as a group you were tired and emotionally drained, or would it fire you up and invoke some kind of a siege mentality?
Yeah, I think, Joe, to be honest with you, with the women, not saying the poor women, but at the time, it would have been just normal for things to come out about the IRFU when we were playing. So it was never a shock to the system. So the game is why we were there. We weren't paid. We absolutely loved rugby. We paid ourselves to travel and go to these places. And, a lot of people that went before me counted the time they travelled to France as a turning point in women's rugby in Ireland, that they were just so badly treated and how everything went away. But the mentality of the players to go there, go on that overnight training and be able to put out a performance. Yeah, they lost, but I think it was only by 2 points or a couple of points in the end. So I think when I was there and when we played, it was always the focus on the game, and we were able to put that other stuff in the background. But Joe, I suppose the thing with us, it was never our living. all of us had jobs or university, so we played for the love of it. We weren't worried about injuries because we always had to probably look after them a lot of the time ourselves anyway.
Yeah, you're so routinely beaten down. It was like, well, what's new? Remind me, that overnight train to France, what year was that again?
Yeah, so it was 2012. It was just before the Grand Slam year, and there was a big, I think Jeanette Feary, one of the girls, wrote to the Irish Times, and it just got massive media attention after that, and how they were treated, and the overnight train, and the lack of sleep, and being able to play. So it kind of kick-started that big era for us. Yeah,
no, you've told me some details about that in a Virgin studio once upon a time, and there's a documentary in it, I think, at some stage to go through the planes, trains, automobiles vibe.
Yeah, TG Carey just ran a documentary, and it kind of goes, and I think Goose, the head coach at the time, talks about it, and some of the girls talk about their experience. And I remember, I lived with someone who was travelling, and they just were absolutely sickened when they came home, because having played with 1 hour sleep in 2 days, and to lose to a really strong French team with French supporters roaring and shouting at them as they were running out into the pitch. But what it done was it sparked something in the team to say, look, we can actually beat this team. We just have to start backing ourselves now.
Rory, with the view to Wales against England in Cardiff, the argument was made in advance of their opening match against Ireland, Gatlin's return, full house. It will be an emotional response, very scary. Then round two, it was, well, they don't lose two in a row very often. It will be an emotional response, very scary. And now here we are. We'll see an emotional response, very scary.
Well, like, I was in the stadium before kickoff, and the noise levels were off the charts, and Ken Owens cried during the anthem, and you were going, oh my God, they're going to hammer Ireland here. Like. And then Ireland scored a try in the first 2 minutes, and there's only so much only so far emotion can take you when you're not that good. And at the moment, depending on what team he picks, and like, that's not been the focus all week. I mean, he had to delay his team announcement. He's either going for a massively experienced but over the hill team, or a massively inexperienced and potentially good down the line but not ready team. And you're going up against an England team who aren't great either. Like, I think I called Connacht Munster the desperation derby earlier in the year, so I probably can't do that twice. But you've got two new coaching tickets, betting in new ideas in a race to the World Cup. England look more settled and further down the line, albeit playing a horrible style of rugby. Wales look an absolute rabble. They're at home, and there's only so much. Like, you can get carried away on that idea that they're going to get that emotional response, and Cardiff will wrap them around, and they've had a hard week, and they're going to pull together. Like, how much have they slept in the last week? I mean, I can see how you form that narrative, and I don't think England are very good, so they can be beaten, and it's not beyond the realms. But I certainly wouldn't be putting any money on Wales pulling it all together this week.
Yeah.
With that as well, sorry Joe, just coming in on that, I'm not sure they will pick him, but it was good. I watched Louis Rees-Zammit over the weekend, and he's obviously back full fitness, and he was playing some excellent rugby. So he's another guy that if he can get into that squad, whether he's there or not, he definitely looks like he's back playing his best rugby. He was cracking for Gloucester.
I think you have to pick him, Fiona. Like, you look at Rio Dyer, looks like he's a great athlete, but he's not ready yet. Whereas Rees-Zammit is a world class winger, and I don't have that many world class players, so at least then Dan Biggar has someone to pick out when and they did spend an awful lot of time in the Scottish 22 and had chances against Ireland and couldn't finish them. So like, I'm probably contradicting myself now, but if they can get a player like that onto the pitch, then they've got a bit more youth and but also youth and pace, but class as well. They just they were so bad against Scotland, and they were pretty outclassed by Ireland. They're firmly in the middle tier, the lower of that middle tier, if not just hovering above Italy at the moment. And I just, I'm slow to kind of back them to kind of pull it all together. Okay. Even though England will be organised, and England will just kick them into the corners and try and win their contestables and all of the kind of things that Steve Borthwick teams do.
Does raise the prospect, if they lose, of wooden spoon decider against Italy in Rome.
Yeah, and Italy back themselves. I don't think they're that much better than Italy at the moment.
That was just a taster of this evening's Wednesday Night Rugby. You can get the full podcast, the full conversation with Rory and Fiona, wherever you get your podcasts, or equally you can download the OTB Sports app.